Welcome to today's Age of Sigmar Spearhead Battle Report. This is our first time playing Age of Sigmar Spearhead, so apologies if we get anything wrong. But today's game takes place in the fiery realm of Akshi. We have as the attacker the Daughters of Khaine. The Daughters of Khaine feature a mechanic known as Blood Rights, which increases in value each turn, giving them a new buff as the game progresses. The Daughters of Khaine are led by a Medusae Iron Scale, with the upgrade Murderous Epiphany in order to advance the Blood Right rule and give them an advantage earlier in the game. For her enhancement, she is taking Bathed in Blood, which gives her the ability to heal a wound every time she kills a model. She is accompanied by 5 Bloodstalkers, as well as 5 Doomfire Warlocks. And finally, 2 squads of each of Witch Elves. Their defenders are the Lumineth Realm Lords. The Lumineth Realm Lords have a rule called Facets of War, which allows them to choose between 2 abilities at the start of each battle round. For each battle round of this game, the Shining Company ability was chosen, which gives the opponent a -1 to hit rolls. Normally, you can change this Facet of War each battle round. However, in this game, each turn, the Shining Company ability was selected. The Lumineth are led by a Cenari Cathalar. For regiment abilities, they have selected Heightened Reflexes, which gives a bonus to armor saves and takes advantage of the lightning reactions. For an enhancement, she has taken Overwhelming Heat, which, when successful, can halve the movement of an enemy unit and possibly cause mortal wounds as well. The rest of the warband is composed of a unit of 5 Venari Blade Lords, 2 units of 5 Orlan Wardens, and 2 units of 5 Orlan Sentinels. Deployment proceeds as shown, with the Daughters of Khaine deploying wide as an attempt to spread out as quickly as possible, to conquer as many zones as quickly as they can, and to hit the enemy as quickly as they can. A unit of Witch Elves is deployed on either side of the deployment. Towards the center are the Doomfire Warlocks, and in a central strong point, the Medusae sits back with the Bloodstalkers, ready to attack from range. The Lumineth adopt a more defensive strategy, with the 2 units of Wardens holding up the front edge of the deployment, where 1 unit of Sentinels guards the flank, the open flank, while the other unit sits behind the Sentinels. Towards the middle of their zone sits the Venari Blade Lords with the Cenari Cathalar. So with all units deployed, we are now ready to begin the battle. Daughters of Khaine, turn 1. The twist for the battle round is wreathed in smoke. The Daughters of Khaine win the roll and select the far corner objective where no fighting will occur this battle round. The Lumineth select Shining Company as their Facets of War. In the movement phase, both units of witches move forward, while the Doomfire Warlocks flank across the wall, ready to engage the Orlan Sentinels. In shooting, crossfire bolts manage to kill 1 Sentinel, while on the other side, the combined shooting of the Bloodstalkers and the Medusae reduce the Wardens down to 1 model. In combat, the Witches and the Medusae manage to charge the back Sentinels and the Lone Warden, while the Doomfire Warlocks manage to engage the Sentinels. As the fighting resolves, only 2 Sentinels remain alive against the Doomfire Warlocks, while only 1 Warden and 2 Sentinels survive against the Medusae Warlock and the 2 remaining Witch Elves. And in the final moments of the turn, the Medusae Iron Scales turns the final Warden into crystal, destroying the unit. At the end of the Daughters of Khaine turn, they control 1, 2, and more objectives for a total of 3. Plus, they score the battle tactic raise, giving them a victory point score of 4 for the first turn. Lumineth Realm Lords, turn 1. The Sigmar Cathalar fails to cast Overwhelming Heat, however, succeeds in her other ability, removing all control points from the Medusae Iron Scales. In the movement phase, a reinforced unit of Orlan Wardens appears on the far side of the board, ready to take that objective point and engage the witches that are bearing down on them. Back on the strong side for the Lumineth, the command tactic fall back and rally is used on the Orlan Sentinels, who safely withdraw from the Witch Elves and gain a new member in the process. They then fire upon the Medusae Iron Scales, doing some damage to the Iron Scales. Meanwhile, in the charge phase, they then charge the 2 Witch Elves, while the Sigmar Cathalar and the Venari Blade Lords charge the Medusae Iron Scales. Melee combat is particularly decisive this round, with the Cathalar and the Blade Lords making quick work of the Medusae Iron Scales, while on the other side of the board, the Doomfire Warlocks finish off the final Orlan Sentinels, now freeing them up for their main target, the Cathalari and the Blade Lords, along with the central objective. However, no battle tactics are scored, so the Lumineth finished their turn 1 with the victory point score of 3. Daughters of Khaine, turn 2. The Daughters of Khaine gain initiative, while the twist allows the underdog Lumineth to select 2 bloodmarked units. They select the remaining members of the original witches that charged on the far right side for the unit that they intend to destroy, and select their own Venari Blade Lords for the unit that the Daughters of Khaine are set to destroy. The Cathalari and the Venari Blade Lords face a number of attacks, not just from the Doomfire Warlock, but also from the Bloodstalkers. However, with Shining Company in play, and some very clutch rolling, very little damage is done in the shooting phase. Fighting is fierce in the melee phase, with the Doomfire Warlocks doing their best to try to defeat both the Cathalari and the Venari Blade Lords, while on the other side of the board at Behemoth, the witches charge into the reinforced Orlan Wardens, only to face their Moonfire Potion, which defeats quite a few of them. And finally, the lone member of the Orlan Sentinels, aka the Falcon Lord, manages to fell one of the Witch Elves and stand up to the remaining one's blades. Unfortunately, the combats did not work in the favor of the Daughters of Khaine. And as predicted, the longer these melees continue, the more things swing against their advantage. They end the turn with only 2 objectives and no blood-marked unit slain, and score only 2 victory points this turn. Lumineth Realm Lords, turn 2. Proving themselves resilient to the hardest attacks that the Daughters of Khaine could throw at them, the Glittering Phalanx opts to spread across the board and conquer more territory. The Sigmar Cathalar and the Venari Blade Lords remain in combat with the Doomfire Warlocks, failing again to cast Overwhelming Heat, while our lone Falcon Lord remains in combat with the lone witch that is bloodmarked. Combat is very decisive this turn, with the Falcon Lord defeating the Lone Witch. And a very big turn for the Lumineth Realm Lords, scoring 1, 2, and more objectives, killing the Bloodmarked unit, and also scoring the battle tactic for flank. The Glittering Phalanx has taken the lead this turn by a score of 8-6. Daughters of Khaine, turn 3. With the Daughters of Khaine being the underdogs this turn, the twist being Reclaim Akshi, in which case the Daughters of Khaine select both of their far objectives to be worth an additional victory point. The Lumineth Realm Lords continue with their Shining Company rule, while the Daughters of Khaine hold the ground that they have, and the combats continue. Once again, however, the Lumineth Realm Lords prove themselves to be fairly resilient, and in fact, they managed to finally wipe out the Doomfire Warlocks. In addition, the lone Orlan Sentinel from the very beginning of the game, the Falcon Lord, defeats the final Witch in single combat, a crushing blow to the Daughters of Khaine. Once again, combat is indecisive. However, the Daughters of Khaine are now looking to units that they can bring in as reinforcements. Daughters of Khaine in this turn have scored the 2 major objectives, adding 4 victory points to their total. Lumineth Realm Lords, turn 3. In the most shocking turn of events in Spearhead history, the Sigmar Spearhead manages to roll an average dice roll and succeed in casting overwhelming heat on the Bloodstalkers. In fact, rolling so well that 1 mortal damage is caused as a result. Meanwhile, the Venari Blade Lords move forward to try to engage the Bloodstalkers. However, they fail their charge. On the other sides of the board, however, the Lumineth Realm Lords have established dominance in multiple points of the board, and therefore, in turn 3, despite some non-eventful fighting, had an advantage of 4 victory points for the turn. Daughters of Khaine, final turn. In the final battle round, the Lumineth once again select Shining Company as their facet of war, and the twist is to let the blood flow, gaining each player an additional victory point for destroying enemy units. In addition, with the Daughters of Khaine being the underdogs, they select the Bloodstalkers to receive the Frenzied rule. A new unit of Doomfire Warlocks comes in as reinforcements to take the center objective, while the battle tactic Reinforcements is played on a unit of Witch Elves, spawning in at the back of the Lumineth Realm Lord lines. Despite this, and the Bloodstalkers receiving a charge, the Blade Lords and Cathalar hold firm, and so at the end of the Daughters of Khaine final turn, it was not enough. Only 2 victory points are scored for retaining objectives, while no units were destroyed during this final turn. Lumineth Realm Lords, final turn. The Sigmar Cathalar, who at this point survived the battle through the clever use of Rise to the Challenge, to heal only to take more damage again, and at this point reduced to 1 wound, managed once again to cast overwhelming heat on the Bloodstalkers. However, no mortal wounds were produced as a result of this spell. The Venari Blade Lords continued their fight against the Bloodstalkers, while in the center of the board, a reinforced unit of Orlan Wardens charged the Warlocks, holding the center objective. And, as if not to be outdone by his fellow Realm Lords, the Falcon Lord slipped past the melee between the Blade Lords and the Bloodstalkers to sneak behind the enemy lines and steal the final objective. Combat was not as decisive this turn. However, it was clear at this point that the Lumineth Realm Lords were able to conquer enough of the battlefield to claim victory. And at the close of the battle, the final score 16-13 in favor of the Lumineth Realm Lords. So with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the game. Once again, just letting you know, the Daughters of Khaine player, this was his absolute first game playing Spearhead, so naturally some maybe not so wise moves were made. And same with me, this is my 5th game of Spearhead, but we're really enjoying it. And in fact, I hadn't planned on making this a battle report except for the remarkable fact that the Lumineth actually won a game. I have yet to see them win a game online. So with that, and I can probably provide some additional commentary on both of these forces, but let's do that in another video. And with that, friends, just want to thank you for watching. Once again, we had a blast. Spearhead is a lot of fun. You should try it out. Anyways, thanks again, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.